I want to talk about how, you know, I want to talk about third worldism, which is a term that these people like to use. Well, no, by the way, and yeah, I want to talk about the third. We could begin from there. Third worldism. Because when Nick Fuentes sees the overwhelming disgust and disdain that other people have for pedophilia, people are like, this child rape stuff, it's awful. And Nick Fuentes, he goes, this is third worldism, you're just a hippie. When he sees that real men are disgusted by the notion of fantasizing about oppressing other men and subjugating other countries, he's like, well, how come Russia and China sometimes do that? And it's like, you're right, they do, but they have a reason. That's what you're missing. There's a logic, there's a historical logic at play that is not a utilitarian calculation of, how do I benefit on this hedonistic level better than others. It's a logic of the development of a principle, okay? Of a civilizational principle. It's not just a phrase. We're talking about different logics of power and how millions of people are unified into one division of labor, and how oftentimes there's a logic of how these interact with other principles, other, imperial principles, and it's not about utilitarian power maxing. That's not, benefiting. This is not realism. This is just LARP, because you're seeing the world as a video game. How do we benefit the most? Well, the way you benefit the most is by developing your productive forces. The way you develop the most is build your people infrastructure, give them healthcare, okay, give them resources. Master, what's up? Give them education, give them literacy rates. That's how you benefit your people. You want to talk about how do we benefit? Well, the way we benefit is by developing our country. That's how we benefit. So when it comes to how countries interact with other countries, and you're saying, well, how do we benefit in terms of those interactions? Well, when you interact with another country, the entire principle that unifies you internally, all the principles upon which your civilization stands, become refracted and reflected to the other country in how you treat that country. Meaning you can't be a civilized country that gives dignity to all the men in your country and then enslave other people. And the best examples of this are Greece and Rome. These were societies that gave freedom to citizens only and enslaved the non-citizens. But even these could not help but give way to a logic which ended up applying the same brutal subjugation to the citizens themselves. So your principles and how you interact with other countries, the reason why that has to reflect your principles as a nation is because that's the only moment in which you are a united, you exist in a united capacity. You're delimited as a distinct power in a unified capacity. Only from another's perspective is that possible. Because within, there's just a division of labor, right? So there is a logic in which conquest happens. There's a logic that makes conquest rational or meaningful historically. But merely saying, I want it because I benefit from it, that's not how it fucking works. Even in the most brutish of settings historically, that's just not a long-term logic of historical development. And you may think it is because of your common sense, but you don't understand anything. It's not just that you don't understand history. You're a Philistine. You're not well-read. You don't understand human life itself. You don't have wisdom about what life is. You play video games. You know what a game is. There's winners and losers and stuff. You have this understanding. That's very primitive. That's not at all a refined sensibility of existence or of existing, right? So when you reject their Philistinism and retarded worldview, they call you a third worldist. They say, well, you're just saying that Americans should sacrifice their interests on behalf of third worlders. This is, I guess, their definition of third worldism, that we should, in the weighing of America's best interests and the interest of third world countries, we need to sacrifice America's interests. And I get it if you're retarded. I totally get it. Like, if you are a straight up extra chromosome, Down syndrome, absolute retard, I totally understand why you would accuse us of third worldism. It's because you're mentally disabled, and I totally get it. I hope you're wearing a helmet and you're safe and whatever, and you're not eating crayons or anything. But the reason it's such a preposterous and stupid notion is that when we're calculating and weighing the different interests between America versus third world countries or whatever, we have to clarify and delimit the subject America. Is America our regime? Is it Wall Street and its shareholders? Or is it actually, in any minimal sense, the American people? And when we start to interrogate that question, what do we find? We find that, let's just talk about white people since these are white nationalists. Rural white people in Appalachia, in this country, in the same way that Burkina Faso has a common interest with Iran and with North Korea and with Venezuela, so do white people living in Appalachia, who live in basically third world conditions themselves. Because what they have in common is they either lack sovereignty and are struggling for it, or they have sovereignty and they're struggling to defend it. The rural white people in America do not have or do not partake in any form or participate in any kind of way in the popular sovereignty of what we call the USA. Because we live under a regime that occupies the overwhelming majority of people. That means there is no popular sovereignty. And I don't just mean to imply that because elections don't matter and because the regime acts with independence from, electoral procedures. I'm saying that because the regime acts in ways that are contrary to the interests of the American people. There's a conflict of interest between using America's wealth and resources for Americans or using it to maintain a global transnational financial system. That's a clear and obvious conflict of interest. And that is what has put the American people at odds with the U.S. regime. We don't have popular sovereignty, not just because elections don't matter and we have no say in power. We don't have connection to power. See, elections may not matter in an authoritarian country, like the DPRK or something, right? Yeah, according to the prejudice, at least. But people have a connection to power, though. Power obeys a popular principle. Power facilitates the will of the people. Power acquiesces to the will of the people. Power is responsive to the sentiments and feelings of the people. Power establishes itself functionally and in principle to serve the people's interests. That's not true for the U.S. regime. The U.S. regime is built on a kind of classical liberal framework of defending negative freedoms. But what that has translated into in the 21st century, it's an autonomous state machine, what Antonio Gramsci would call a hegemony, because it includes media, it includes academia, and all these other things, whose purpose is to maintain the interests of monopoly financial capital. That doesn't belong to the government. That doesn't belong to anything that even exists in the name of the American people. It belongs to private actors. So in weighing the conflict of interest, it's not between America and third world countries. It's between the American people and their own regime. Now, Nick Fuentes is too stupid to understand this, so he calls us a third worldist because he used to get bullied by BAP and the Bappists and Captive Dreamer, and, you know, just like how he was bullied or whatever when he was a kid, and now he wants to become his bully himself to feel powerful. He also wants to become his Baptist bully, you know, his Baptist, Jewish, Talmudic, or whatever bullies, right? So he's trying to use that energy against us and call us third worldists. But he doesn't understand the conflict of interest. He doesn't understand the order of interest. There isn't a conflict of interest between the American people and third world countries. There's a conflict of interest between the American people and the regime. And no, the prosperity and well-being of the American people does not depend upon subjugating and enslaving and looting and stealing from other countries. We have plenty of our own resources. We have plenty of our own talent. We have plenty of our own ability. We have plenty of our own everything to build productive forces in this country. But let's just say we didn't, for the purposes of argument. Because I'll even entertain that argument. There are, in a certain sense, there's resources and global supply chains that, you know, we can't just be isolationist. We do have to depend upon those. We do, but when we do that, the same principles that unify us as a nation have to be reflected in how we interact with other nations. If our state is founded upon a principle of national self-determination, we have to recognize other people have that right as well. If our state, I'm not talking about individual rights, I'm talking about the rights of our state, so to speak. We're talking about the right of the American state. What purport does it justify itself on the basis of? Well, we declared independence from the British Empire, for example. Okay, if we don't reflect that principle in how we interact with other nations, that will damage, corrupt, and erode the principle that's supposed to unify us internally. You can't maintain internal cohesion, unity, and morale while simultaneously violating the same principles upon which those rest in your dealings and treatment of other nations. And that's very simple. If we need resources from Burkina Faso, we need to strike a fair deal with the people of Burkina Faso. We can't oppress them. We can't use gunboat diplomacy and do it by force. We have to treat them as a people with their own dignity, with their own right to national self-determination, and we have to respect that. Otherwise, we run the risk of compromising, corrupting, and damaging our own morale, our own internal principles that unify us as a nation. The way we recognize others is the source of our self-recognition. Now, this is too intelligent or too complex for these people to understand. But yeah, how you treat others is a reflection of how you regard yourself and how you treat yourself. So this applies for nations as well. A nation, and that's why Lenin said, can a nation be free if it oppresses other nations? It cannot. A nation cannot be free if it oppresses other nations. Because you can't create a united subject, Nick Fuentes, you fucking idiot. There's a subject implied when you say, let's go take it, let's go do it. Who the fuck is we? And what keeps we unified? What unifies us? That's a principle. Only a principle can unify individuals, right? How do you have individuals who are separate and then to say nothing of separate families and all these other kind of separations? How do you unify people into a single national subject? Well, the dimension of principle and morality and all these other things he says are hippie shit, well, that becomes relevant. And that is going to be determined, or I should say, that is going to be suspended in the reality of how you treat other nations. You can't create He could say, well, we're just going to unify all the white people, and then we're going to treat all the non-whites like shit. So, like a basic, if you want to think about it in a game theoretical logic of team sports, we're the blue team. We're going to kill everyone who's not part of the blue team. So, green team, yellow team, pink team, we're just going to treat you as subhuman, and we're going to create a bright line rule for whether or not you're considered human and worthy of these lofty principles. Yes, we have these principles of sovereignty and self-determination, but we only think that they should apply for people on the blue team. If you're on the yellow team, we don't recognize you exist, so you're nothing to us. So that can only lead to two branching paths, both of which, well, I'll explain the one, which is just immediately you can dismiss it. Extermination. We're going to exterminate every single team besides the blue team. So that's the path of extermination. We're going to kill and exterminate everyone outside of the blue team, right? Now, extermination. How as a functional principle would this lead to the breakdown of internal unity? If the blue team kills and exterminates and annihilates every other team, yellow team, red team, orange team, whatever, then they have created a cause for the annihilation of beings who do not fit the criterion. Specific, and it has to be a very strict criterion. There's no room for ambiguity when it comes to annihilation. To annihilate something is to delimit a thing. So we have to have absolute certainty. Okay. But then internally, part of the logic of unity, part of the logic of how to unify people, how do you ameliorate conflict that emerges? Petty conflict, squabble that emerges between people. Well, within your nation, you have two neighbors arguing over a fence, right? People on the blue team. Okay? Guys, shut the fuck up about viewers and listen to what I'm saying before I forget about what I'm talking about. This is really high level stuff, okay? Don't fucking forget this and lose this train of thought, okay? As a matter of fact, recite what I just fucking said so I make sure that everybody's fucking listening. Blue team, are you following me? There's two paths. If you want to have the Nick Fuentes view, his model of international relations and realism, and how we can model this in a game theoretical sense, that we're the blue team, and we should do everything that just benefits us, and that we don't have to recognize any other team, right? So red team, yellow team, they're all fair game because we only care about benefiting us. So there's two branching paths as far as how you can treat others who are not part of the blue team. And blue team can mean whatever you want. It can mean our race, the white race. It can mean our country, America. It can mean any kind of like bright line rule that, defines our tribe versus them, us versus them, right? So I'm just calling it blue team for the sake of it. So blue team, first path, let's just go annihilate and kill everyone. So everyone who's not part of the blue team has to get subjugated, okay? Now, Nick Fuentes is like, this is, I'm not saying he's calling for this. Just ignore the moral dimension. This is not a moral argument. Just ignore the moral dimension. This is a functional argument of how principles function, right? You say, well, let's be safe. The blue people will be protected. We're going to go and annihilate all the others, but we'll sleep soundly and we'll be fine because we'll be unaffected by this. We will not be affected by this. Okay. But what do you get when you get two individuals? To say nothing of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 or 20 or 100 million. The inevitability of conflict. Conflict is inevitable. Squabbles are inevitable. Misunderstandings are inevitable. Some kind of conflict is especially if we're living in a capitalist. I'm not even going to talk about that. I'm just going to say human nature engenders the inevitability of petty conflict. Even within families. Okay. And conflicts have a tendency to escalate. So part of what makes a unifying principle of national existence effective is that you can ameliorate conflicts, right? Okay. Well, when you create an absolutely rigid, and again, it has to be absolutely rigid, Has to be absolutely certain, okay? It has to be absolutely like a red line, because it's the difference between life and death. You need to be fucking absolute about it, because this is annihilation versus life. If you don't fit the bill, we're going to shoot you and kill you. So you need to be certain. So it's an absolute formalistic line of distinction, right? Okay, so when conflict happens internally, let's say two neighbors are fighting over a fence. When the conflict escalates, what happens when someone accuses another of not really being blue? You don't fit the criterion, buddy. You're 5% red. Now, maybe this is impossible. Maybe you've created a state where, using technology, you have made it absolutely pure and only blue people could possibly exist according to the technology. But all it takes is someone to spread a rumor. Hey, there was a glitch in the system. Let's create the suspicion and paranoia that there's this part of our society, this person, this group, they're not on the blue team. So therefore, I have the right to fucking kill them. The logic that you apply to other nations is your own logic. So if you say you're not on the blue team, well, what if you say, okay, what if it's not something as rigid as race or blood quantums? What if it's about just being an American citizen? You know, I was born here. Again, you could raise an air of suspicion around whether someone was born here, or whether someone is a real citizen, or whether they forged and fabricated their documents. In any case, the harsh and brutal, formalistic, rigid principle that you use to annihilate other people will fucking devastate and destroy your internal unity. Because you're setting a standard, although it only at the outset appears to only apply to outsiders, what applies to outsiders will inevitably infect the group within. Because the group needs to know who's in the group and who's out. That is not a given. It has to be continuously affirmed. If I'm part of a unified nation, okay, the nation has to continuously affirm to itself the principles that unite it. Any principle that is united on the basis of exterminating all outsiders will inevitably break down within. Because in the continuous affirmation, in the positive sense of what it means to be part of the tribe, eventually there's going to be a misunderstanding, there's going to be some kind of internal conflict, there's going to be some kind of confusion, and this strict, harsh principle of annihilation will be turned inward. And the blue team will start annihilating itself. Now, one's if that makes perfect sense to you. Two's if I need to continue elaborating why this principle of unity, which says we can just annihilate all the others, is impossible. In a game theoretic sense, it's just impossible. No morality needed, no morals, no anything. It's just actually impossible to unify a nation on the basis of, annihilating all their nations. Like, to say nothing of it if it's possible. Maybe we have nukes and we can do it. Maybe we can put a dome over America and just nuke the world, right? Like even if we presume that's possible, that could not unify America. It can't unify a nation. Okay, so the second thing, I know I talked a lot about the first thing, but the first thing is supposed to be dismissed because it's just easy to understand. It's the second thing that's interesting historically. It's the second if you reject the premise, you're a retard. It's the second thing, because this is just a fucking thought experiment to explain why it's not hippie moralist shit and third worldism that you should have a principled stance of how your nation treats other nations. That's all this is for the purpose of demonstrating. It's a necessity for the integrity of your nation. The second thing is more interesting. Okay? The second thing is the one that's historically observable, and it's interesting. It's subjugation. We're not going to annihilate others, but we're going to subjugate them and consider them lesser than us. That's where the entire interesting kind of development of history happened. You know? Because if there's just annihilation, there's no development of history. Like, nothing can develop. So this is Hegel's master-slave dialectic. Two men fight. Okay, if one kills the other, then nothing will happen. There's no development of mutual recognition. It's over. But if someone subjugates another, then you have the master-slave dialectic, right, that Hegel describes, or Kojev explicates. So, in the second case, this is Nick Fuentes' actual position. He would never add. He said, we're the blue team. Blue team should subjugate all the other teams because they're lesser than us. It's not that we don't give them any recognition, but they are inferior to us, and we should subjugate and oppress them. Now, this is exactly, in a way, what Greece and Rome did. Yeah, historically, this is what happened. We are free and they are slaves, right? The problem is the same as in the first case. Every principle of unity upon which you distinguish yourself from others has to be continuously reproduced. So the question is not, should we as Americans, for our own self-interest, subjugate and enslave the world? The question is, can we do that while continuously reproducing a principle that unifies our nation? A principle that unifies our nation. That just a common American sense of Americanness and American national identity, participation in a common political community of any kind. The first easy question is to ask is this is the simplest one. Who's doing the subjugating? Are all Americans going to subjugate the world equally? Are they going to divide the entire world equally into parcels? This is kind of what happened with Alexander's conquest. Let's just pretend it did. We conquer the world and every American gets a parcel of slaves to subjugate and oppress. Like, this is just the most ridiculous, extreme example of what Nick Fuentes is advocating for. Let's start from there. Even if that happens, because everything has to continuously reproduce itself, a Darwinism occurs, okay? Some slave owners end up outperforming others. I don't believe individuals are equal. I think individuals are quite varied. And in this case, some will be better at subjugating than others. So when that inevitably happens, some people who were initially entitled to an equal parcel of dividing the world and subjugating and enslaving a given, quantum of human beings not on the blue team, that person will have to depend on another for the purposes of continuously reproducing that subjugation. Common identity does not eliminate the phenomena of mutual dependency. So, in Rome, if we presume that every Roman citizen began with an equal quantum of slaves, some experienced problems in agriculture and others did not. And the guys who, whose plots of land did not bear enough yield and output had to take out loans from others. Hey, I don't have enough to feed all of my goy cattle slaves. Can you lend me some? I can't maintain this. This is just, I can't continue oppressing and so, because subjugation and oppression are economic facts. They're expensive. So, hey, can you give me a loan? Okay. So from this germ, the entire conflict within Rome and Greece occurred, which was a class struggle. And what did it culminate in? It culminated some of the people who are part of, some Roman citizens became slaves. They became serfs. Those are the people who became serfs. But they became indebted. They lost their land. They lost their means of production and their means of subsistence. And they found themselves subjugated by others. So anyone who advocates for the subjugation of other human beings and the oppression of other human beings whatsoever and in any capacity is advocating for this within the nation, not just against other nations. No nation can remain united where everyone has equal dignity, but we just don't have to recognize or respect the dignity of others. Because principles go two ways: the internal unity and how you interact with other unities, right? Because you have a principle. It's not a person, it's a principle. There's other principles. How you interact and relate to these other principles is what defines yours. Or at least how yours is defined is at stake in that interaction. So yes, external subjugation always comes home. It's never strictly external. It always finds its way home. Because all relations predicated upon oppression and subjugation, however much you define a strict identity that you think is going to save you from happening to you, it comes home. It corrupts and erodes this identity, which is really a purport and it's a pretense. A nation cannot be free and simultaneously oppress other nations. It's not possible. If you treat other nations as equals, I'm not saying equals in the sense that you think they're the same as you, but equals in the sense that they have just as much of a right to self-determination as you. They have just as much of a right and to live in dignity. Then you are just reflecting the same things that unify your own nation. Now you might ask, what about the Soviet Union and what about China and all this other kind of stuff? First of all, to whatever extent the Soviet Union was mistreating other nations, those same contradictions were absolutely internal, and they were probably a big factor in the dissolution of the USSR, in the revisionist period. For example, the way the USSR was wary and mistrustful of China in the beginning, well, what did Mao criticize Stalin for? He said Stalin didn't trust the peasants. Stalin didn't trust the peasants. He also didn't trust the Chinese. So you see, by the same logic, that was true. So, but in any case, the USSR held other nations to the same standard it held itself in terms of, socialism, proletarian dictatorship, yada yada. You say, well, this was just formally, and in reality, there is inequality of some kind. Maybe that's inevitable in some sense. But what it is not is a deprivation of others' dignity and humanity. What it is not is oppressing and subjugating other people just because you're saying you can. Inequalities, developmental inequalities, all sorts of inequalities can arise for all sorts of different reasons. That doesn't mean you have a right to sanctify those into a principle, though. That's the difference. You don't turn those into a principle. So there's a major difference there. There's a difference between the principle that unites you and, the inadvertent realities that arise as a consequence of the interaction between different nations and principles, which themselves, engender a continuous and further development. Absolutely, they do. So, and then, okay, so the second prong of what I wanted to talk about is then, well, if you hate oppression and subjugation so much, Haz, why are you a tanky? Like, what's up with the Stalinism thing? Because we don't fantasize about suppressing other men and their innate God-given potential. What we do want is a state that is strong enough as an authority to lock up Matt Walsh and persecute Matt Walsh and make Matt Walsh go work in the mines. To humble him. And the purpose is to humble those that would oppress and exploit others. That's the reason. It's not like we have a hard-on for oppressing other men. We think that some people need to be fucking humbled because they violate justice. They violate the justice of a civilization. They think they're superior. They think they're better than the common man. Well, they should fucking toil in the ice and in the snow just like the common man to fucking teach them a lesson, not to sadistically torture them to prove our superiority over them. Communist dictatorship has nothing in common with fascist terrorist dictatorship. We oppress people not because we love oppression and we love, we want to somehow torture people to prove our own superiority. We oppress people who fucking deserve it. They do fucking deserve it. They need to be oppressed for justice. They need to be oppressed so that others can be free. They need to be oppressed so it can be proven to them that their arrogant tendencies, avowing themselves as superior, are wrong by their own logic. And it has to be proven by their own logic. Germany had to be conquered. You had to teach those fucking Nazis you are wrong even by your own logic to humble them. Did the Russians want war? Do they love war? Do they love killing people and slaughtering them and bombing people? Of course they fucking don't. But if these are the principles upon which you stand, you need to be fucking reined in by the same sword you live by. You think Genghis Khan just loved killing people for its own sake? No, he loved humbling people. Genghis Khan loved humbling people who thought they were superior to a guy who lived on his fucking horse and lived on tents. He didn't love brutalizing and humiliating people to prove his own superiority and their innate inferiority. He loved humbling people who thought they were fucking better than him because he lived in tents and rode on horses. That's the fucking logic of conquest. You bring down the fucking arrogant to level things. You don't fucking put people down to raise yourself up. You stand up and you bring those down who seek to raise themselves above you. That's the fucking passion of conquest. The passion of conquest is proving them fucking wrong. They said you couldn't do it. They said you were nothing, and you fucking did it. Why? To bring justice, cosmic justice to the world. They said you were nothing. They said you were a barbaric Turk. You live in a fucking tent. You're nothing. You ride a horse. You have nothing. That's what they told you. So you humbled them in response. You told them, you better fucking recognize me. You better fucking recognize my humanity. I am equal to you. This is the passion and fire that has fueled every major fucking conquest in the history of humanity. Not, I'm superior to you because what, you're a fucking pederast who's arrogant and contrived some fucking principle you pulled out of your fucking anus? Like Socrates, and you said your fart was fucking God? And therefore you're superior? You're bitch slapped into the ground and humbled. That's not the passion of conquest. That's nihilism. All men are born free with God-given dignity. It's when we seize upon this freedom given to us. It's when we seize upon this dignity given to us and innate by the grace of God that we as men conquer. When we assert ourselves as men, not as slaves, not as bitches, not as cattle. We hate seeing other people oppressed. We're disgusted by the oppression and enslavement of others. But if we have to conquer and annihilate and destroy those who would see us in chains, what would our fucking founding fathers say? So be it. The passion of conquest is to assert as supreme a principle that humbles those that consider themselves powerful, a principle of cosmic justice, a principle that descends from heaven. It's the mandate of heaven. It's not the mandate of some fat fuck fucking watching anime. It's not the fucking mandate of some fucking pedophile eating Twinkies. It comes from starry heaven above. It's God's grace. We live, we die for it, or we're nothing. You think Attila the Hun could inspire passion and resolve in men willing to die for that cause? Were it not for the fact that he was preaching a principle of cosmic justice, not self-gain, not self-interest, not consumption, and that's what this really fucking is. It's consumption. It's filthy and disgusting. You preach a notion of consumption. I want to consume more, you little bitch. That's what you fucking want? They would have fucking beheaded you and paraded your fucking head around their camps and their tribe. Orbital, what's up, bro? And y'all, we're entering the new year. I appreciate it. Appreciate it, y'all. Appreciate the support. Because let me tell you guys, this month, tomorrow, I'm going to be on YouTube. I'm going to leave it up to you guys how you want to support me. If you want to support me on YouTube because you like the dono chats things, that's on you. It's up to you. YouTube takes 30. If you want to support me on Kick, and then on YouTube, we're just chilling. I mean, because I'm going to be on YouTube tomorrow. And then there's a third option, was if you want to support me, and you don't want YouTube to take 30%, just go through my, go to the bottom of this stream right now. You'll see it. Go to my what is it called? My, what do you call it? Text to speech donation. It's like yeah, it's a text to speech donation. So you can, yeah, through the Ko-Fi text to speech donation, I'll get all of that. It's not 30%, it's 100%. So there's that. But I'll be on YouTube tomorrow, guys, but I think for one, I can't make nothing this month. I mean, that would be crazy. But you know, I'm gonna take a big risk for this month. But support me on Kick and I can do more on YouTube. That's all I'm saying. Or you can support me on YouTube, you know? You can support me on YouTube. But yeah. Thomas, I appreciate you, bro. Thank you. Oh my god, Orbital with the 25. Bro, thank you so much. Holy shit. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you, bro. Thank you. Good luck on YouTube. Guys, I'm going to try to be on YouTube tomorrow. I'll be early. I think it'll be like at 3. I don't know. Yo, Comrade Kid with the 25. What's up, bro? Thank you, bro. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you, bro. Good shit. You know, I was just thinking about something. You know, they tried to take a song from us. Why? Because Tyler Robinson put the song name on his bullet. You know, they tried to take Bella Ciao from us. Like, we should be scared of using this song. Oh, is it fuck? Literally, go fuck yourself, you bitch. I don't give a fuck about Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I say I didn't know who he was. I have nothing to fucking do with him. Humble, what's up? Oh, so what's going on, bro?
Great stream ACP rising.
You know, yeah. Bella Ciao, that's the song of the Italian partisans. We're never giving that up. Fuck yourself, you bitch. No, they didn't steal it from us. They're claiming that if you play this song, that you had a hand in Charlie Kirk's assassination. Or it's proof that you killed Charlie Kirk. Hey, fuck you. I don't give a fuck about Charlie Kirk. It's got fucking nothing to do with me. So, on that note, y'all. See y'all tomorrow.